Rain pounds the makeshift shelter. A homeless child watches everything fall apart. But sometimes, when you least expect it, magic arrives with a guitar. Bruce Springsteen appears through the storm. What happens next will change everything. A homeless child's darkest moment becomes something extraordinary. One song, one heart, infinite possibilities. This is a story about hope finding its way home. The rain hammers down on the abandoned construction site like bullets from heaven, each drop carrying the weight of another broken promise. 8-year-old Marcus huddles beneath a sheet of rusted corrugated metal that serves as his roof, watching helplessly as the muddy water seeps through every crack in his carefully constructed world. His home, if you could call it that, consists of cardboard walls reinforced with duct tape, a sleeping bag he found behind a thrift store, and a plastic tarp that's supposed to keep the rain out, but has given up the fight. The storm isn't just washing away his shelter, it's drowning his hope. Marcus presses his face against the cold metal, watching the water carry away his few possessions. A photograph of his mother, a plastic action figure missing an arm, and the notebook where he writes his thoughts when the loneliness becomes too heavy to carry alone. Everything disappears into the darkness, swept away by the relentless current. The thunder rolls across the sky like God's bowling ball, and Marcus wraps his thin arms around his knees, making himself as small as possible. He's been on the streets for 3 months now, ever since his grandmother died and social services lost track of him in the system. 3 months of learning that adults don't always keep their promises, that shelters fill up fast, and that an 8-year-old can disappear into the cracks of society as easily as rainwater disappears into storm drains. But tonight feels different. Tonight feels like the end of something. Through the driving rain, a figure emerges from the mist. At first, Marcus thinks he's hallucinating. The hunger does that sometimes, makes you see things that aren't there. But the man keeps walking, steady and purposeful, carrying something on his back that looks like a guitar. The stranger stops about 20 feet away, taking in the scene, the collapsed cardboard walls, the overflowing water, and the small boy trying to make himself invisible against the storm. The man is older, maybe his grandmother's age, with graying hair and kind eyes that seem to understand things without being told. "Hell of a night for camping!" the man calls out, his voice cutting through the rain. Marcus doesn't respond. Experience has taught him that adults who talk to homeless kids usually want something, and it's rarely anything good. The stranger steps closer, careful not to invade the boy's space. "Name's Bruce," he says, unslinging the guitar from his back and holding it over his head like an umbrella. "You got a name?" "Marcus," the boy whispers, barely audible over the storm. "Marcus," Bruce repeats, like he's tasting the name, finding it worthy. "That's a strong name, Roman emperor name." He looks around at the flooded construction site. "This your place?" Marcus nods, embarrassed. "Was," he says. "Rain got it." Bruce surveys the damage with the practiced eye of someone who's seen his share of broken things. The cardboard walls are completely destroyed. The tarp is twisted around a piece of rebar like a flag of surrender, and everything that made this place a home is now floating toward the storm drains. "You know," Bruce says, settling down on a piece of concrete block about 5 feet away from Marcus, "I once lived in a place not much different from this. Long time ago, when I was young and stupid and thought the world owed me something." He cradles the guitar in his arms, protecting it from the rain. "Had this little apartment above a gas station in Asbury Park. Walls so thin you could hear the neighbors thinking. Roof leaked so bad I had to put buckets everywhere when it rained. Sounded like a percussion section during storms." Marcus finds himself listening despite his better judgment. There's something about this man's voice, weathered but warm, like leather that's been worn soft by time and use. "One night," Bruce continues, "storm came through worse than this one. Roof didn't just leak, it gave up entirely. Ceiling came down right onto my bed. If I'd been sleeping, would have killed me for sure. But I was up, sitting in the corner, writing songs. Songs. Marcus asks, the word slipping out before he can stop it. Bruce smiles, and it's the first genuine smile Marcus has seen in months. Yeah, songs. That's what I do. Write songs about people like us. People who don't have much but still got dreams worth singing about. The rain continues to fall, but something about Bruce's presence makes the storm seem less threatening. Marcus finds himself scooting a little closer, drawn by the warmth in the man's voice. What happened? Marcus asks. After your roof fell down? Well, Bruce says, adjusting his grip on the guitar, I sat there looking at the mess, everything I owned scattered and broken, and I had a choice to make. I could feel sorry for myself, or I could write a song about it. Which did you do? Both, Bruce laughs. Felt sorry for myself for about 10 minutes, then picked up this old guitar and started playing. He strums a soft chord, the sound somehow carrying clear and true despite the rain. Turned out that broken-down apartment gave me some of my best material. Hardship has a way of teaching you things you can't learn any other way. Marcus watches Bruce's fingers move across the strings, creating music that seems to push back against the darkness. Are you famous? He asks. Some folks know my songs, Bruce says modestly. Been lucky enough to make a living doing what I love, but that's not why I'm here tonight. Why are you here? Bruce looks directly at Marcus, and the boy feels seen in a way he hasn't in months. Because I was walking home from the studio, heard someone needed a friend, and figured I'd introduce myself. You heard someone needed a friend? Call it intuition, Bruce says. Or maybe the rain told me. Rain's got a way of washing away everything except what really matters. He strums another chord, more complex this time. What matters tonight is that you're not alone anymore. The simple statement hits Marcus like a physical force. Not alone. He can't remember the last time that was true. I don't have anywhere to go, Marcus admits, the words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. My grandma died and they put me in a foster home, but the man there, he wasn't good, so I ran. Been trying to take care of myself, but I'm not very good at it. Bruce nods, understanding flooding his eyes. 8 years old? Yeah. That's too young to be taking care of yourself, son. That's not your job. Whose job is it then? Marcus asks, and there's a bitterness in his voice that no 8-year-old should possess. Mine, Bruce says simply. Tonight? It's mine. He stands up, guitar still in hand, and looks around the flooded construction site. This place isn't safe anymore, especially with the storm. You need somewhere warm and dry. He pauses, seeming to make a decision. I've got a place not far from here. Big house, plenty of room. My wife Patty makes the best hot chocolate in New Jersey, and we've got a guest room that's been waiting for someone who needs it. Marcus stares at him, unable to process what he's hearing. You want me to come to your house? I want you to be safe, Bruce says. Everything else we can figure out tomorrow. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Bruce kneels down in the mud, bringing himself to Marcus's eye level. Son, I've been writing songs about people like you my whole career. People who slip through the cracks, who don't have voices loud enough to be heard. I've made millions of dollars singing about the forgotten ones, the left behind, the ones society pretends don't exist. His voice grows stronger, more passionate. Tonight I get a chance to do more than just sing about it. Tonight I get a chance to actually help. Marcus feels something stirring in his chest. Hope, maybe, or just the desperate desire to believe that good things can still happen. What if I'm not worth helping? The question breaks Bruce's heart in half. He reaches out slowly, giving Marcus time to pull away if he wants to, and gently places his hand on the boy's shoulder. Marcus, he says, his voice thick with emotion, every single person is worth helping. Every single one. And you're not just worth helping, you're worth everything. The rain continues to fall, but somehow it doesn't feel cold anymore. Marcus looks into Bruce's eyes and sees something he hasn't seen in months, someone who genuinely cares whether he lives or dies. Okay, Marcus whispers. Okay, I'll come with you. Bruce's smile could power a small city. That's the best news I've heard all week. He stands up, slinging the guitar over his shoulder. But first, we need to see if we can salvage anything from your place here." Together, they wade through the muddy water, searching for Marcus's scattered possessions. They find the photograph of his mother, water-damaged but still recognizable, trapped under a piece of debris. The action figure is nowhere to be found, claimed by the storm, but the notebook is wedged against a concrete block, its pages soaked, but the words still visible. Bruce picks up the notebook carefully, like he's handling something precious. "What's in here?" "Just thoughts," Marcus says, embarrassed. "Stupid stuff." Bruce opens to a random page and reads silently for a moment. His expression changes, becomes more serious. "Marcus, this isn't stupid, this is poetry." "It is? Listen to this," Bruce says, and begins to read aloud. "The rain sounds different when you don't have a real roof. It sounds angry, like it's trying to tell you something you don't want to hear, but sometimes, if you listen really close, you can hear the good parts too, like maybe it's washing something clean." Bruce looks up from the notebook, his eyes shining. "Son, that's beautiful. That's the kind of truth that makes great songs." Marcus feels heat rising in his cheeks. No one has ever called anything he wrote beautiful before. They gather the few remaining salvageable items, the photograph, the notebook, a small blanket that's not completely soaked, and begin walking away from the construction site. Marcus takes one last look at the place that's been his home for the past month, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. "It wasn't much," he says. "It was yours," Bruce replies. "That makes it something, but now you're moving on to something better." They walk through the rain-soaked streets, Bruce shortening his stride to match Marcus's smaller steps. The boy keeps glancing up at his companion, still not entirely convinced this isn't an elaborate dream brought on by hunger and desperation. "Bruce," Marcus says, after they've walked several blocks. "Yeah? Are you really going to help me? Or are you just being nice until you can dump me somewhere?" Bruce stops walking and kneels down again, this time in the middle of the sidewalk under a flickering streetlight. The rain has slowed to a gentle drizzle, and the harsh fluorescent glow makes everything look surreal. "Marcus, look at me," Bruce says. "Really look at me." Marcus meets his eyes, searching for the lie he's learned to expect from adults. "I am going to help you," Bruce says, each word deliberate and strong. "Not just tonight, not just until I can hand you off to someone else. I'm going to make sure you have what every kid deserves, a safe place to sleep, food in your belly, and people who care about what happens to you. That's a promise, and I don't make promises I can't keep." "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "Because," Bruce says, 30 years ago, someone made me the same promise, and they kept it. Changed my whole life." He stands up, offering his hand to Marcus. Sometimes the chain of kindness skips a generation or two, but it always comes back around. Marcus looks at the outstretched hand for a long moment, then slowly reaches out and takes it. Bruce's grip is warm and strong and steady. Everything Marcus hasn't had in his life for far too long. They continue walking, hand in hand through the quiet streets of New Jersey. The storm has passed, leaving behind the clean smell of washed air and new beginnings. "Tell me about the person who helped you," Marcus says. "His name was Clarence," Bruce begins, his voice taking on a storytelling quality. "Big man, played saxophone like an angel, found me playing guitar on a street corner when I was about 17, looked like I hadn't eaten in a week, which I hadn't. What did he do? Bought me dinner. Biggest meal I'd ever seen. Cheeseburger, fries, milkshake, apple pie. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven." Bruce chuckles at the memory. "But more than that, he listened, really listened. I told him about growing up poor, about my dad who drank too much and worked too little, about feeling invisible in my own life. And then what? He asked if I wanted to be in his band." Marcus stops walking. "Just like that. Just like that. Said he could tell I had music in me that needed to get out." Bruce squeezes Marcus's hand gently. "Course, I wasn't any good at first. Took years of practice, years of playing in dive bars and empty clubs, but Clarence believed in me before I believed in myself. That made all the difference." "What happened to him?" Bruce's expression grows soft with memory and loss. He passed away a few years back, cancer, but before he died he made me promise to keep the chain going, to watch out for people who need watching out for. He looks down at Marcus. Guess that's you tonight. They turn onto a tree-lined street where the houses are larger with well-maintained lawns and the kind of porch lights that suggest families gathering inside for dinner. Marcus has walked through neighborhoods like this before, always feeling like an intruder, someone who doesn't belong in places where people have enough. Bruce stops in front of a modest two-story house with warm light glowing in the windows. There's a front porch with rocking chairs, a garden that's been loved into bloom, and a sense of home that radiates from every board and shingle. This is it, Bruce says. Home. Marcus stares at the house, overwhelmed. It's beautiful. Wait until you meet Patty. She's the one who makes it beautiful. Bruce walks up the front steps, still holding Marcus's hand. Fair warning, she's going to fuss over you something fierce. That's what she does with anyone who needs fussing over. Before Bruce can reach for his keys, the front door opens and a woman appears. She's about Bruce's age, with kind eyes and greying hair, pulled back in a casual ponytail. She takes in the scene, her husband holding hands with a soaked, skinny boy, and her expression immediately shifts into what Marcus will later learn is her full mom mode. Oh, honey, she says, and Marcus isn't sure if she's talking to Bruce or to him. Get inside right now, both of you. You're soaked to the bone. Bruce grins. Patty, I'd like you to meet Marcus. Marcus, this is my wife, Patty, the best person I know. Patty steps aside to let them in, already moving into action. Marcus, sweetheart, let's get you into some dry clothes and get some food in you. You look half frozen. She disappears for a moment and returns with a stack of towels. Bruce, there are some of Evan's old clothes in the guest room closet. They might be a little big, but they'll be warm. Marcus stands dripping in the entryway, overwhelmed by the warmth and the immediate acceptance. The house smells like home-cooked food and safety, two things he'd almost forgotten existed. Go ahead, Bruce says gently. She's harmless, I promise. Well, mostly harmless. Patty swats at her husband playfully. I heard that. She turns back to Marcus, her voice becoming soft and nurturing. Come on, sweetie, let's take care of you. An hour later, Marcus sits at the kitchen table wearing clothes that are indeed too big. Jeans that he has to roll up at the cuffs, a sweater that hangs past his hands, but they're clean and dry and smell like fabric softener. More importantly, they belong to him now, no questions asked. In front of him is a bowl of soup that might be the most delicious thing he's ever tasted, along with grilled cheese sandwiches cut into triangles and a glass of milk that's actually cold. Real food, served on real plates, by people who seem genuinely happy to have him here. Bruce sits across from him, having changed into dry clothes as well, while Patty bustles around the kitchen, periodically stopping to ruffle Marcus's hair or ask if he needs more soup. So, Bruce says, tell us about yourself, Marcus. What do you like to do when you're not camping in construction sites? Marcus looks up from his soup, a piece of grilled cheese halfway to his mouth. I like to write, he says quietly, and I like music when I can hear it. What kind of music? All kinds, I guess, but I like the songs that tell stories, the ones about real people doing real things. Bruce and Patty exchange a look. Those are my favorite kinds too, Bruce says. Maybe tomorrow you can show me some of what you've written. If you want to. You really want to see it? Marcus, Patty says, settling into the chair next to him, we want to know everything about you. Your favorite foods, your favorite colors, what makes you laugh, what makes you sad. We want to know the whole Marcus. The boy stares at her, fork suspended midway between bowl and mouth. Why? Because, she says simply, you matter. Everything about you matters. It's such a foreign concept that Marcus has trouble processing it. He matters. When was the last time anyone acted like he mattered? After dinner, Bruce shows Marcus to the guest room. It's small but cozy, with a twin bed covered in a blue quilt, a desk by the window and shelves lined with books. Real books, more than Marcus has ever seen in one place. "This is all for me?" Marcus asks, running his hand along the quilt. "For as long as you want it," Bruce says. "We'll figure out the long-term stuff tomorrow. Tonight, you just need to rest." Marcus sits on the edge of the bed, testing its firmness. After months of sleeping on cardboard and concrete, it feels like a cloud. "Bruce." "Yeah? What if this is all a dream? What if I wake up back in the construction site?" Bruce sits down beside him on the bed. "Then it was a really good dream, wasn't it? But Marcus, this isn't a dream. This is real. You're safe now." "For how long?" "For as long as it takes to figure out the rest of your life. And I'm thinking that's going to be a while." Marcus looks around the room again, trying to memorize every detail in case it disappears. "I don't understand why you're doing this. Remember what I told you about Clarence? About the chain of kindness?" Marcus nods. "Well, here's the thing about chains. They only work if every link is strong. Clarence was strong for me, and now I get to be strong for you. Someday, when you're older, you'll get to be strong for someone else who needs it. What if I'm not strong enough?" Bruce reaches over and taps Marcus gently on the chest, right over his heart. "You survived on the streets for 3 months, son. You took care of yourself when no one else would. You built shelter and found food and kept going when most adults would have given up." His voice grows stronger. "You're already stronger than you know. Now you just get to learn what it feels like to be strong with help instead of strong all alone." That night, Marcus lies in the comfortable bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a house settling around him. He can hear Bruce and Patty talking quietly downstairs, their voices a comforting murmur that speaks of normalcy and routine. For the first time in months, he's not cold. He's not hungry. He's not afraid that someone will tell him to move along or call the police or pretend he doesn't exist. He's home. The next morning, Marcus wakes to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Bruce playing guitar somewhere in the house. For a moment, he panics, thinking it was all a dream. But then he sees the 2 big clothes folded neatly on the chair and remembers, this is real. Downstairs, he finds Bruce sitting in the living room with his guitar, playing a soft melody that sounds like morning sunshine. Patty is in the kitchen, humming along while she cooks breakfast. "Morning, sleepyhead," Bruce calls out. "Sleep okay?" Marcus nods, settling onto the couch next to Bruce. "What song is that?" "Something new." Still working on it, Bruce continues playing, the melody wandering and exploring. "Actually, I was thinking about what you wrote in your notebook. That line about the rain sounding different. Been trying to turn it into music." "Really? Want to help?" Marcus stares at him. "I don't know how to make music." "Sure you do. You already write lyrics, some of the most honest lyrics I've ever seen. Music is just another way of telling the same stories." Bruce shows him how to hold the guitar, where to put his small fingers on the frets, how to strum without hitting all the strings at once. Marcus's hands are too small to make proper chords, but he can manage simple melodies, and Bruce is endlessly patient, encouraging every small success. "Music is like friendship," Bruce explains as Marcus struggles with a particularly difficult finger position. "It's not about being perfect right away. It's about showing up and trying and getting a little better each time." Over breakfast, the fluffiest pancakes Marcus has ever seen, with real maple syrup and butter, Patty asks about school. "I haven't been," Marcus admits, suddenly ashamed. "Not since I left the foster home." "Well, that's going to change," Patty says matter-of-factly. "But first, we need to take care of some other things." She's already made calls, she explains, to social services, to a family lawyer, to the local school district. She's the kind of person who sees a problem and immediately begins solving it, methodically and thoroughly. "What did you tell them?" Marcus asks, suddenly worried that he's about to be taken away from the first place that's felt safe. "The truth," Patty says, "that we've got a boy who needs a family, and we've got a family that needs a boy." "Is it that simple?" Bruce and Patty exchange another look, and Marcus is beginning to recognize this as their way of communicating without words. "No," Bruce says honestly, "it's not that simple. There's paperwork and background checks and interviews and probably a dozen other hoops to jump through. But here's what I've learned in 50+ years on this planet. The things worth having are worth fighting for. And you think I'm worth fighting for? Marcus, Patty says, her voice fierce with conviction, we don't just think it, we know it. The days that follow blur together in a haze of new experiences. Marcus gets his own library card and checks out more books than he can carry. He starts taking guitar lessons with Bruce, his small fingers gradually learning to find their way around the frets. He begins attending the local elementary school, where his teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, seems to understand that he needs extra patience and encouragement. Most importantly, he starts to believe that this might actually last. One evening, about 2 weeks after the storm, Marcus is sitting at the kitchen table working on homework while Bruce prepares dinner. It's become their routine, homework first, then music, then whatever Patty has planned for the evening. Bruce, Marcus says, looking up from his math problems. That song you're writing. The one with my words in it. Can I hear how it's coming? Bruce puts down the wooden spoon he's been using to stir the pasta sauce and picks up his guitar. Over the past 2 weeks, the melody has evolved and grown, becoming something beautiful and complex. It goes like this, Bruce says, and begins to sing. The rain sounds different when you don't have a real roof. It sounds angry, like it's got something to prove, but sometimes, if you listen with your heart instead of your ears, you can hear it washing away all the fears and leaving something clean behind, something you thought you'd never find. Like maybe home was never a place, maybe home was always a choice you make. Marcus listens with his mouth open, hardly believing what he's hearing. His words, his thoughts from those lonely nights in the construction site have been transformed into something beautiful and hopeful. That's really good, he whispers. It's not finished yet, Bruce says. Songs like this, they need time to find their proper shape, but I think it's going to be something special. Are other people going to hear it? If you want them to. It's your story, Marcus. You get to decide how it gets told. That night, as Marcus gets ready for bed, he finds Patty sitting in the guest room, his room now, looking through a photo album. What's that? He asks, climbing into bed. Family photos, she says, scooting over to make room for him. I was thinking we should add some new ones. She flips through pages of pictures, Bruce on stage, family vacations, holidays, birthday parties, a life fully lived and carefully documented. Here's my favorite, Patty says, stopping on a photo of Bruce and Clarence on stage together. Bruce looks young and intense, all concentrated energy, while Clarence grins widely, his saxophone catching the stage lights. He looks happy, Marcus observes. He was. He said the best part of making music was sharing it with people who understood what it meant to be hungry for something more than food. She turns the page, and Marcus sees photos of other children, kids at summer camps, at music programs, at charity events. Bruce and Patty with dozens of different young faces over the years. You guys have helped other kids before. Some, Patty says, when we could, but never like this. What's different about this? Patty closes the photo album and looks directly at Marcus. The others, we helped with money or opportunities or connections. Important things, but temporary things. She reaches out and smooths his hair. We're helping with everything. Forever. Forever. If you want forever, do you want forever, Marcus? Marcus thinks about the question, though he already knows the answer. He's known it since that first night, when Bruce knelt in the mud and promised to help him. He's known it every morning when he wakes up safe and warm, every afternoon when he comes home from school to find Patty waiting with a snack and questions about his day, every evening when Bruce helps him with his guitar practice. Yeah, he says, I want forever. 6 months later, Marcus stands in a courtroom wearing his first real suit, holding hands with Bruce and Patty as a judge makes it official. The adoption papers are signed, the gavel falls, and suddenly he has a last name that matches theirs, a family that's legally and permanently his. How does it feel? Bruce asks as they walk down the courthouse steps. Weird, Marcus says honestly. Good weird, but weird. It'll take some getting used to, Patty agrees, but we've got plenty of time to figure it out. That evening, they have a party. Nothing elaborate, just cake and ice cream, and a few close friends who've watched this unlikely family come together. Marcus gets presents, which still feels strange and wonderful. But the best gift is the look on Bruce and Patty's faces every time someone congratulates them on their son. Their son. He's their son now. After the guests leave and the dishes are done, Bruce suggests they sit on the front porch. It's a warm spring evening, the kind that makes you believe in new beginnings and second chances. I've got something for you, Bruce says, disappearing into the house and returning with his guitar and a manila folder. What is it? Remember that song we've been working on? The one that started with your words, about the rain? Marcus nods. The song has evolved over the months, becoming something neither of them could have created alone. It's about storms and shelters, about finding home in unexpected places, about the kind of love that shows up when you need it most. I finished it, Bruce says, and I want you to have the first copy. He hands Marcus a sheet of music with both their names at the top, When the Storm Passes by Bruce Springsteen and Marcus Springsteen. Marcus stares at the paper, at his new name printed next to Bruce's, at the notes and words that tell their story. We wrote a song together. We sure did. And it's a good one. Bruce begins to play, and Marcus joins in on the chorus. His voice is still changing, sometimes cracking on the high notes, but it blends perfectly with Bruce's weathered baritone. They sound like family. When the storm passes, when the rain moves on, there's always something left to build upon. Maybe it's just a muddy patch of ground, but maybe it's the place where hope gets found. And maybe home was never just a place. Maybe home was always love you can't erase. When the storm passes, we're still here. As they sing, neighbors begin to appear on their porches, drawn by the music. Mrs. Chen from next door, the Johnsons from across the street, even old Mr. Kowalski, who usually keeps to himself. They don't join in. This song belongs to Bruce and Marcus, but they listen with the respect you give to something sacred. When the song ends, there's a moment of perfect silence, the kind that follows something beautiful and true. That was lovely, Mrs. Chen calls out softly. Play another one, suggests Mr. Johnson, and they do. They play for an hour, working through Bruce's catalogue of songs about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about finding dignity in struggle, about the complicated beauty of American life. Marcus knows most of them now, has been learning them like lessons in how to be human. Finally, as the evening grows cool and the streetlights begin to flicker on, Bruce puts down his guitar. Time for homework, he says to Marcus. Do I have to? It's adoption day. Especially because it's adoption day. Education is how you build a life that can't be washed away by any storm. Marcus groans dramatically but heads inside, and Bruce follows, leaving the guitar on the porch. They've done this so many nights now that it's become ritual. Homework at the kitchen table, while Bruce cooks dinner and Patty grades papers from her teaching job at the community college. Family life. Normal life. The kind of life Marcus never dared imagine could be his. 2 years pass. Marcus is 10 now, taller and sturdier, his voice more confident when he sings. He's learned to play guitar well enough to perform with Bruce at local charity events. Small venues where the spotlight doesn't blind you and the audience knows every word to every song. Tonight, they're playing at the Asbury Park Music Foundation's annual benefit, a modest affair in the same club where Bruce played his first paying gig 40 years ago. The room is packed with familiar faces, musicians and teachers and social workers, and people who understand that music can save lives. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce says into the microphone, I want you to meet my son Marcus. He's going to help me with a song we wrote together. Marcus steps up to the second microphone, his guitar hanging across his narrow chest, and looks out at the audience. 2 years ago, this many people looking at him would have made him want to disappear. Now, He feels ready to be seen. This song is about storms, Marcus says, his voice carrying clearly through the small space, about how sometimes the worst things that happen to you end up leading to the best things. Bruce starts the opening chords, and Marcus joins in perfectly on time. They've practiced this song hundreds of times, but tonight it feels different. Tonight it feels like a testimony. The audience is completely silent, hanging on every word, every note. When they reach the final chorus, the part about home being love you can't erase, Marcus sees tears on faces throughout the room. After their set, people line up to shake hands and offer congratulations. A woman from social services thanks them for raising awareness about children in foster care. A teacher asks if they'll consider performing at her school. A young man about Marcus's age, accompanied by his adoptive parents, thanks them for making him feel less alone. That's what it's all about, Bruce tells Marcus later as they pack up their instruments, using whatever gifts you have to help other people feel less alone in the world. On the drive home, Marcus is quiet, processing the evening's events. "What are you thinking about?" Patty asks from the passenger seat. "Just everything, I guess. How different my life is now, how different I am." "How so?" Marcus considers the question. 2 years ago I thought I was invisible. Now I feel like I matter to people. Real people, not just you guys." "You always mattered," Bruce says. "You just needed the right people to help you see it." "But what if you hadn't found me that night? What if you'd walked a different way home, or the storm hadn't been so bad, or I'd been somewhere else?" It's a question that's haunted Marcus sometimes, the randomness of their meeting, the thousands of small decisions that led to that moment under the makeshift shelter. "But I did find you," Bruce says firmly, "and you were exactly where you needed to be." Sometimes I think the universe has a way of putting the right people in the right place at the right time. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, how do you explain all the coincidences? How do you explain me walking down that exact street at that exact moment, carrying my guitar because I'd been working late? How do you explain you being brave enough to trust a stranger when every adult in your life had let you down? Marcus thinks about this as they pull into their driveway. The porch light is on. It's always on now, a beacon that says, "Welcome home." And he can see his guitar case waiting by the front door where he left it that morning. "Maybe it wasn't a coincidence," he says finally. "Maybe it was supposed to happen." "Maybe it was," Bruce agrees. "Either way, I'm grateful it did." 3 more years pass. Marcus is 13 now, all elbows and knees and voice cracks, navigating the treacherous waters of middle school with the same determination he once used to survive on the streets. He's popular enough. The other kids think it's cool that his dad is famous, but he's learned to value the friends who like him for himself, not for his proximity to celebrity. He still writes, filling notebook after notebook with observations and stories and songs. Some of them are good enough that Bruce takes them seriously, offering suggestions and encouragement. A few have even made it onto Bruce's albums as co-writing credits, earning Marcus his first royalty checks, and more importantly, his first taste of what it feels like to have your art matter to strangers. Tonight is different, though. Tonight is the night Marcus has been both anticipating and dreading for months. Bruce is headlining Madison Square Garden, his first time back at the venue in 3 years, and Marcus is going to join him on stage for their song. Not just any stage, but the biggest stage in New York, in front of 20,000 people. "You nervous?" Patty asks as they sit in the green room backstage, listening to the opening act finish their set. "Terrified," Marcus admits. "What if I forget the words? What if my voice cracks at the worst possible moment? What if I throw up on stage? Then 20,000 people will have a story to tell for the rest of their lives," Bruce says, appearing in the doorway with his guitar. "But you're not going to throw up. You're going to be amazing." "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching you perform for 3 years now, and you've never once let the moment get bigger than the music. The music is what matters. The rest is just amplification." Marcus takes a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. "Dad?" "Yeah?" Thank you for everything, for saving me, for believing in me, for making me part of your family, for teaching me that music isn't just about entertainment, it's about connection." Bruce's eyes grow bright with unshed tears. "Son, you saved me just as much as I saved you. You reminded me why I started making music in the first place. You gave me a reason to be better than I was." The stage manager appears in the doorway. "Mr. Springsteen, you're on in 5. Bruce nods and turns back to Marcus. "Ready to show them what we've got?" "Ready." They walk through the maze of corridors that lead to the stage, past crew members and equipment and other musicians. Marcus can hear the crowd now, a low rumble of anticipation that grows louder with each step. At the side of the stage, Bruce stops and takes Marcus's hands in his. "Remember what we talked about," he says. "It's not about the size of the crowd or the importance of the venue. It's about telling our story honestly. That's all we've ever done, and that's all we need to do tonight." Marcus nods, feeling some of his nervousness transform into excitement. This is what he was born to do, not the fame or the recognition, but the sharing of truth through music. Bruce steps out onto the stage, and the roar of the crowd is like a physical force. 20,000 people on their feet, cheering for the man who taught Marcus that ordinary people can do extraordinary things if they're willing to work hard and stay true to themselves. Marcus watches from the wings as Bruce launches into his opening number, commanding the stage with the same natural authority he brings to everything else in his life. This is Bruce at his best, connected to every person in that vast arena, making them feel seen and understood and less alone. 40 minutes into the set, Bruce steps up to the microphone. "I want to tell you all a story," he says, and the crowd settles into expectant silence. "About 5 years ago, I was walking home from the studio on a rainy night when I came across a boy who needed help. 8 years old, living in a construction site, taking care of himself because there was nobody else to do it." Marcus feels his heartbeat accelerate. "That boy taught me something I'd forgotten somewhere along the way," Bruce continues. "He reminded me that music isn't just about filling concert halls or selling records. It's about reaching out to people who feel invisible and letting them know they're not alone." He turns toward the side of the stage where Marcus is waiting. "That boy is my son now, and tonight he's going to help me tell you the story of how we found each other. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Springsteen." Marcus steps into the spotlight, and the crowd erupts again. He walks to the second microphone, trying to remember to breathe, trying to focus on the music instead of the magnitude of the moment. "Hi," he says, his voice smaller than he intended. He clears his throat and tries again. "Hi, everyone." A wave of affection washes back at him from the audience. They're rooting for him, he realizes. They want him to succeed. "My dad told you I was living in a construction site," Marcus says, finding his confidence. "Well, what he didn't tell you is that I was also writing songs. Bad songs mostly, but songs about what it felt like to be forgotten." He looks out at the sea of faces, no longer intimidating but somehow intimate, like 20,000 friends gathered to hear a story. "This song started with something I wrote about rain," Marcus continues, "about how it sounds different when you don't have a real roof over your head. My dad took those words and turned them into something beautiful. We've been working on it together ever since." Bruce starts the opening chords, and Marcus joins in perfectly. His voice is stronger now, more mature, but it still carries the emotional honesty that made Bruce stop in his tracks that first night. "The rain sounds different when you don't have a real roof. It sounds angry, like it's got something to prove, but sometimes, if you listen with your heart instead of your ears, you can hear it washing away all the fears and leaving something clean behind. Something you thought you'd never find." The audience is completely still, hanging on every word. Marcus can see faces in the front rows, and they're all focused on him, not because he's Bruce Springsteen's son, but because he's telling them something true about survival and hope and the surprising places you can find home. When they reach the final chorus, something magical happens. 20,000 voices join in, singing words that Marcus wrote in a notebook while huddled under a piece of corrugated metal. His private thoughts about loneliness and belonging have become an anthem that connects him to every person in that arena. When the storm passes, when the rain moves on, there's always something left to build upon. Maybe it's just a muddy patch of ground, but maybe it's the place where hope gets found. And maybe home was never just a place. Maybe home was always love you can't erase. When the storm passes, we're still here. As the last note fades, the silence is profound. Then, slowly, the applause begins. Not the wild, immediate roar that greeted Bruce's entrance, but something deeper and more meaningful. The kind of applause that says, "Thank you for sharing something real with us." Marcus looks out at the crowd, then over at Bruce, who's grinning with pride and joy. "That's my boy," Bruce says into his microphone, and the crowd explodes with approval. They play 3 more songs together before Marcus leaves the stage, but when the storm passes is the moment everyone will remember. It's the moment a 13-year-old boy who once lived in a construction site stood in front of 20,000 people and reminded them that everyone deserves to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. Backstage after the show, Marcus is surrounded by well-wishers and reporters and other musicians who want to congratulate him on his performance. It's overwhelming in the best possible way, but what means the most is the quiet moment when Bruce pulls him aside. "I'm proud of you," Bruce says simply, "not just for tonight, but for every day, for the man you're becoming. I couldn't have done any of this without you and Mom. Maybe, but you're the one who had to do the work. You're the one who chose to trust us when trust didn't come easy. You're the one who turned pain into art." Bruce puts his arm around Marcus's shoulders. "That's all you, son." As they make their way through the corridors of Madison Square Garden, heading toward the exit and the car that will take them home to New Jersey, Marcus reflects on the journey that brought him here. 5 years ago, he was invisible, forgotten, convinced that he didn't matter to anyone. Tonight, he stood on one of the world's most famous stages and felt the love of thousands of strangers. But the real transformation isn't about fame or recognition or even musical success. It's about learning to believe that he deserves good things, that he's worthy of love, that his voice matters in the conversation of human experience. "Dad," Marcus says, as they settle into the back seat of the car. "Yeah? When you found me that night in the storm, did you know it would turn out like this?" Bruce considers the question as they drive through the Lincoln Tunnel, leaving Manhattan behind and heading toward home. "I hoped," he says finally, "I hoped that if we gave you enough love and stability and encouragement, you'd grow into someone special. But what you've become exceeds even my wildest dreams. What have I become? Someone who uses his gifts to help other people feel less alone in the world. Someone who turns suffering into art, pain into purpose." Bruce reaches over and ruffles Marcus's hair. "Someone who makes me proud to be his father." Marcus settles back in his seat, watching the familiar landscape of New Jersey roll past the windows. In a few hours, they'll be home, where Patty will be waiting with hot chocolate and questions about the show. Tomorrow, Marcus will go to school like any other 13-year-old, do his homework, practice guitar, probably get in trouble for something minor. But tonight, he carries with him the memory of 20,000 people singing words he wrote when he thought nobody would ever hear them. Tonight, he knows beyond any doubt that his story matters, that his voice deserves to be heard, that he belongs in this family and in this world. The storm that brought Bruce and Marcus together passed years ago, but what it left behind continues to grow and flourish and touch other lives in ways they're only beginning to understand. 5 years later, Marcus is 18 and preparing to graduate high school. He's been accepted to several colleges, but has decided to defer for a year to work on his first solo album. The songs are deeply personal, about identity and belonging, about the weight of expectations, about growing up in the shadow of fame while trying to find your own light. Bruce has offered to produce the album, but Marcus has politely declined. This is something he needs to do on his own, with a producer who will challenge him to dig deeper, to find his own voice separate from his father's influence. "I'm not rejecting everything you've taught me," Marcus explains as they sit on the front porch one evening, guitars in hand as always. "I'm just ready to see what I can build with it." "I understand," Bruce says. And he does. Every artist has to find their own way eventually. The best teachers are the ones who make themselves obsolete. They play together in comfortable silence for a while, father and son, two musicians who happened to find each other in a storm and decided to make a family out of music and love and shared purpose. "I've been thinking about that night a lot lately," Marcus says. "The night you found me. What about it? About all the things that had to go wrong in my life for me to be in that construction site. My mom dying, my grandmother getting sick, the foster home being what it was. All these terrible things that led to the best thing that ever happened to me." Bruce stops playing and looks at his son. "What are you getting at?" "I'm writing a song about it. About how sometimes the worst moments in your life are actually doorways to something better. About how the universe might be more mysterious and purposeful than we think." "What are you calling it?" Marcus grins. "The Long Way Home." "That's perfect. Want to hear what I have so far?" Bruce nods, and Marcus begins to play a melody that's distinctly his own, influenced by Bruce's style, but unmistakably different, more complex and contemporary, with unexpected chord changes that reflect a generation raised on different musical influences. "I took the long way home, through alleys and broken dreams, past places where hope goes to die, and nothing is ever what it seems. I took the long way home, through storms that nearly broke me, but every wrong turn led me right. To the family I was born to be. It's beautiful and mature and heartbreakingly honest." Bruce listens with the attention he gives to all great songs, completely present, allowing the music to work its magic without trying to analyze or improve it. "That's going to be a hit," he says when Marcus finishes. "You think so?" "I know so. But more importantly, it's true. And truth is what people are hungry for in music." That night, as Marcus gets ready for bed, his last few weeks in this room before he moves to Los Angeles to record his album, he finds Patty sitting on his bed with another photo album. "More family pictures?" he asks, settling beside her. "The newest ones," she says, opening to the first page, "from the last 5 years. The pages are filled with images of Marcus growing up. First day of school pictures, birthday parties, family vacations, Christmas mornings. But also performance photos. Marcus at various venues, on different stages, sometimes alone, sometimes with Bruce, always completely absorbed in the music. "Look at this one," Patty says, stopping on a photo from his Madison Square Garden performance. Marcus is mid-song, eyes closed, completely lost in the moment. The audience is visible in the background, faces upturned, connected to something larger than themselves. "I look so young," Marcus observes. "You were young. You're still young. But look at your face in this picture. You're not performing for them. You're sharing with them. There's a difference." Marcus studies the photo, seeing what she means. There's an openness in his expression, a vulnerability that invites connection rather than demanding attention. "Is that what good performance looks like?" he asks. "That's what authentic performance looks like, the kind that changes people's lives." She turns the page, and Marcus sees photos he hasn't seen before. Images from the audience that night, taken by fans and friends. In every picture, faces are turned toward the stage with expressions of recognition and hope. "Mrs. Chen sent me these," Patty explains. "She said she wanted us to see what we looked like from out there." "What do we look like?" "Like family. Like people who found each other and decided to build something beautiful together." The final page of the album is reserved for a letter, handwritten in Bruce's careful script, to Marcus. "When I found you in that storm 5 years ago, I thought I was saving you. I didn't realize you were saving me too. You reminded me why music matters. why stories need to be told, why every person deserves to be seen and heard and loved. You've grown from a scared boy into a confident young man, from someone who thought he was invisible into someone whose voice reaches thousands of people. But what I'm most proud of is that success hasn't changed who you are at the core. Someone who cares deeply, who works hard, who uses his gifts to help others feel less alone. As you start the next chapter of your life, remember that home isn't just a place you come from. It's also a place you carry with you, wherever you go. You'll always have a room here, a place at our table, a family who believes in you completely. But more than that, you'll always have the knowledge that you turned pain into purpose, that you survived the worst and chose to build something beautiful from the pieces. That's not just good music. That's good living. Love always, Dad. Marcus reads the letter twice, his eyes blurring with tears by the end. He wrote that the day you decided to record your own album, Patty explains. He said he wanted you to have it before you left, so you'd know how proud we are. I'm going to miss you guys so much. We're going to miss you too. But sweetheart, this isn't goodbye. This is see you later. You're not leaving us. You're expanding us, taking everything we've taught you and building something new with it. Marcus closes the photo album and hugs it to his chest. What if I fail? What if I'm not as good as I think I am? Then you'll learn from it and try again. That's what artists do. That's what families do. Patty brushes his hair back from his forehead, the same gesture she's been making since that first night when he arrived soaked and scared. But I don't think you're going to fail. I think you're going to soar. 6 months later, Marcus's debut album, The Long Way Home, is released to critical acclaim and commercial success. The title track becomes a hit, climbing the charts and earning airplay on stations across the country. But more importantly, it reaches people who need to hear its message of hope and resilience. Marcus gets letters from foster children who feel seen and understood, from adoptive families who find validation in his story, from anyone who's ever felt invisible or forgotten or like they didn't belong anywhere. The success leads to a tour, small venues at first, then gradually larger ones, as word spreads about the young man who writes songs that heal hearts and remind people that they matter. Bruce and Patty attend every show they can, standing in the wings and watching their son command stages with the same natural authority Bruce has always possessed, but with his own unique style and message. After a particularly powerful performance in Philadelphia, the same city where Bruce got his start, Marcus finds his parents backstage, both of them crying. "What's wrong?" he asks, immediately concerned. "Nothing's wrong," Bruce says, wiping his eyes. "Everything's right. You were magnificent out there." "You think so?" "I know so. But more than that, I could see what you were doing for those people. I could see faces changing, hearts opening, people remembering what it feels like to hope." Bruce pulls his son into a fierce embrace. That's the greatest gift any artist can give. The tour continues for 8 months, taking Marcus across the country and eventually internationally. He plays in small clubs and large arenas, at music festivals and benefit concerts, always carrying the message that everyone deserves to be heard, that every story matters, that love can find you in the darkest places if you're brave enough to accept it. On his 21st birthday, Marcus is back home in New Jersey, taking a break between tours. The three of them, Bruce, Patty, and Marcus, are sitting on the front porch as they have countless times before, guitars in hand, playing music for the simple joy of it. "I have something for you," Bruce says, disappearing into the house and returning with a wrapped package. Marcus opens it carefully and finds a leather-bound journal, similar to the notebook he was writing in when Bruce first found him, but much more elegant. "For the next batch of songs," Bruce explains. "I figured you might be ready for an upgrade." Marcus opens the journal and sees an inscription on the first page. "Every story deserves to be told. Every voice deserves to be heard. Every person deserves to be seen. Keep writing, keep singing, keep believing in the power of music to heal the world. Love, Dad." "Thank you," Marcus says, his voice thick with emotion, "for everything. for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself, for teaching me that music is about more than entertainment. It's about connection and healing and hope. Thank you, Bruce replies, for reminding me why I started making music in the first place, for giving me the greatest honor of my life, being your father. They sit in comfortable silence as the sun sets over their neighborhood, three people who found each other in a storm and built something beautiful from the aftermath. Marcus looks around at the porch where he spent countless evenings, at the house that taught him what home really means, at the two people who saw past his circumstances to his potential. 13 years ago, he was a scared 8-year-old convinced that he didn't matter to anyone. Tonight, he's a successful recording artist with thousands of fans around the world. But the real transformation isn't about fame or fortune. It's about learning to believe that he deserves good things, that his voice has value, that he belongs in this world and in this family. Want to play something? Patty suggests. What should we play? Marcus asks. How about the one that started it all? Bruce suggests. Marcus grins and starts the opening chords to When the Storm Passes. Bruce and Patty join in, their voices blending in perfect harmony, telling the story of how they found each other and chose to build a family from love and music and shared purpose. Neighbors begin to appear on their porches, drawn as always by the music. Mrs. Chen from next door, now in her 80s but still spry. The Johnsons from across the street, whose own children are grown and gone. New families with young kids who've moved into the neighborhood and adopted this evening concert as part of their routine. They're all part of the extended family now, connected by music and community and the understanding that everyone needs a place where they belong. As the song ends and the applause fades, Marcus realizes that this moment, surrounded by family and neighbors, making music simply for the joy of sharing it, is what happiness actually looks like. Not the screaming crowds or the chart positions or the critical acclaim, though those things are wonderful, but this, being known and loved and valued exactly as you are. I love you guys, he says quietly. We love you too, Patty responds. Always have, Bruce adds. Always will. Marcus settles back in his chair, guitar across his lap, and looks up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, he knows, there are other kids who feel invisible, forgotten, convinced that their stories don't matter. Tomorrow, he'll continue trying to reach them through his music, to let them know that they're not alone, that their voices deserve to be heard, that home can be found in the most unexpected places. But tonight, he's exactly where he belongs, surrounded by the people who saw his worth when he couldn't see it himself, making music under the stars, living proof that sometimes the most devastating storms can lead to the most beautiful destinations. The chain of kindness that started with Clarence and continued with Bruce now extends through Marcus to countless others who need to know that they matter, that they're seen, that they're not alone in the world. And in a small house in New Jersey, three people who found each other in a storm continue to build something beautiful from the love they chose to share. Never underestimate the power of kindness. Never underestimate the impact of seeing someone who feels invisible. Never underestimate what can happen when you choose love over indifference, action over assumptions, hope over despair. Because sometimes the person you help on the darkest night of their life grows up to light the way for thousands of others. Sometimes a stranger with a guitar becomes the father you always needed. Sometimes home isn't a place at all. It's a choice you make to love and be loved in return. The storm passed years ago, but what it left behind continues to grow and flourish and touch lives in ways that ripple outward like stones thrown into still water, creating waves of hope that reach shores we'll never see. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful song of all. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If it touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your own thoughts in the comments below. Everyone has a story worth telling, and everyone deserves to know that they matter. What storms in your life led to unexpected blessings? We'd love to hear from you.